In the small town of Rife, a trans-dimensional place, whose population varies upon those that survive the night, and those that enter and leave through whatever interdimensional device they have. Rife is a little-known secret that has a history of gruesomely horrific deaths performed by ghosts, demons, ghouls, serial killers, aliens, vampires and people that sleep with plastic bags over their heads. Every night there is a murder and/or alien abduction. People still flock to this small scary town because housing prices are so low. Of course, housing is so cheap because the homes are used to lure more victims. It is often said by the survivors that the best way not to be killed is to simply sleep with a smiley face paper bag over your head. This method may seem foolish, but ghosts, demons, ghouls, serial killers and aliens are really creeped out by someone that wears a brown paper bag with a smiley face on it. It is important to remember to use a paper bag, and not a plastic. Rife is not known for vampires, but they do have one, and his name is Strauss. He is a sad and emaciated vamp because he is very picky about the blood he will take. Strauss only likes AB negative, which is only 1% of the population, and he will only take the blood of virgins. People with AB negative are very promiscuous, so even in the 1% group there are not a lot of virgins. This is why Strauss is always near death, because he only feeds once a year. He has been this way for over 300 years. Strauss was made a vampire in London in the year 1721. He was trapped on a ship that headed for the New World in the early 1800s and never returned. What remains of his British accent is a lisp when he says words with an S or Z in them. His victims find it difficult to take him seriously. As a result, he is often insulted. When he finally does find a victim that matches his tastes, Strauss is careful not to make a mess, and removes all his clothes before attacking his prey. The last thing his victim sees is the terror of an emaciated 300-year-old naked man lunging at them with his fangs extended for the bite. On this night, the smell of a person with AB negative blood is in the air. During the day, a 40-year-old computer programmer moved into the town of Rife. The new resident's smelly unbathed virgin AB negative body has alerted every monster in town. The witch Alice is taking bets on just who will get the new resident first. Strauss the vampire was very aware that it would be a fight for the first one to get to Todd the computer programmer with AB negative blood. He didn't even pause to brush his teeth. Strauss quickly rose from his coffin, that is inside a concrete mausoleum, located in the town cemetery. Strauss frantically took to the air as a vampire bat and straight to Todd's house. Strauss hovered outside the bedroom window and watched Todd playing a video game on his computer. The problem with being a vampire is you must be invited into someone's house, where other creatures can just barge in and take their meal. Strauss could sense others were approaching fast. He panicked and screamed. Todd turned and saw a very large bat outside his window. He took a picture of it with his phone and returned to his game. Strauss tried to use mind control to persuade Todd to come open the window. Todd stood up, walked to the window and shut the curtains. Strauss was livid. He thought he might just tear Todd to pieces instead of eating him. Strauss then flew around to the front door, turned back into a vampire and knocked on the door. Todd answered the door in a dirty t-shirt stained with pizza oil and in old boxer shorts. He wasn't wearing boxer briefs, or designer boxers, just the ones great-grandpa might wear. Without describing too much, let's say, like Todd's boxers look like they haven't been washed in some time too. Todd looked at the rotting corpses of a creature standing in front of him, dressed very fashionably, on his doorstep. Sadly, Strauss the vampire smelled a bit better than Todd the computer programmer. "What's up, ugly?" Todd rudely asked the vampire at his door. Strauss wasn't exactly sure what Todd asked him. "You just going to stand there and look creepy, old man?" Strauss knew his time was limited, as other creatures would soon be lining up behind him for a chance at Todd. Not because they too desired Todd's blood type, the monsters of Rife had different reasons. Ghosts wanted his soul, ghouls delighted in torture because the screams of their victims nurtured the ghouls. Demons also want souls. It's how they receive vitamins. Serial killers are at more risk than other humans because of their darkness. Most evil creatures relish the tearing apart the dark souls of evil humans. Of course, zombies just want brains. Strauss said, "I am the town of Rife welcome wagon and I'm here to welcome you to our village, I mean town. It's awfully late for that. Why are you here?" Strauss smiled and replied, "Truth, I heard you are a computer programmer, and I am looking for another for our Dungeons and Dragons game." Todd's expression immediately changed to delight. "You've come to the right place, sir," Todd said. "Please come in. Let me show you my gear." Apparently, Dungeons and Dragons fans have gear. Finally, Strauss was relieved. An invitation to enter. "I will feed quickly before the others arrive," he told himself. As Strauss followed Todd into his parlor, he began removing his clothes and nicely folding them on a table. Todd was so excited, he didn't notice the vampire was completely naked and floating toward him. Suddenly, the door came crashing in. Standing inside the house stood two ghouls pushing each other. Now the two ghouls were startled because a Babadook entered the house from behind them. A Babadook is a supernatural creature that is the embodiment of grief, anxiety and depression. A Babadook can take the form of any person, animal, or insect. Nothing is free from a Babadook. He can draw fear and anxiety from any creature, even ghouls and vampires. When the two ghouls entered the house, Strauss the vampire's anxiety spiked. When the Babadook entered the house, not only did it increase the vampire's anxiety but the two ghouls too. The Babadook was there to feed off all four of the beings' dwindling energy. Todd was terrified, not only of the naked 300-year-old emaciated vampire that was inching closer, but also of the two ghouls and the Babadook. The Babadook greedily absorbed all of Todd's fear, and the vampire was stressed out because he thought the other three creatures would devour Todd before he could take his blood. If Strauss doesn't feed tonight, he will have to bury himself in the soil from his home or take the distasteful blood from people with O positive and O negative. Strauss would rather cease to exist. The two ghouls would be happy to devour any human, regardless of their blood type. Strauss lunged at Todd and sunk his fangs deep into Todd's neck. But the old vampire was so weak he couldn't penetrate Todd's skin. Strauss tried a repeated series of rapid bites and still nothing. The two ghouls used this as a chance to take Todd for themselves. They made an awkward run to snatch the human away from the vampire, but they were stopped in their tracks by an invisible force. This is also why Strauss couldn't bite Todd's neck. It was the Babadook. He blocked the two ghouls and the vamp so he could feed off their frustration. You could see the sheer delight in the Babadook's eyes. Slowly, the two ghouls, the vampire and Todd's were too weak to stand, and they began to slump over. The four victims of the Babadook were unexpectedly released from the strange creature's invisible embrace. Zombies. The thing that many people don't know about zombies is, they don't particularly enjoy the taste of brains. They don't need the nutrients of humans or any living thing. What brains do for them is allow them to experience the memories of their victims. This is the only way they can feel anything. What people don't know about Babadook is they have very large brains. The Babadook was so focused on draining the negative energy from the vampire, the two ghouls and Todd the computer programmer, that he didn't see the zombie slowly sneak up and bite a chunk out of his brain. With the Babadook gone and the zombie happily sitting on the floor eating its brains, Strauss was able to bite down on Todd's neck and drain all the AB negative blood from his body. The two ghouls wandered away because a bloodless body is tasteless. Finally, Strauss was restored to a less hideously aged naked vampire, and everyone left the house. Todd's body began to twitch on the floor, then moved his arms and legs and stood. Todd's body was possessed by the spirit of an evil ghost. That happened to also be a fan of video games but was never solid enough to use the controllers. Stay tuned for more stories from the town of Rife.
For more stories like this, click like and subscribe.